Welcome back, Kaiju fans, to another Kaiju film discussion. And today, along with great Godzilla YouTuber Godzilla 851, he and I are discussing the epic Godzilla film from 1991, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. So let me give a huge shout out to two people for making this video possible. Of course, Godzilla 851, thank you so much for your participation and for your input. It's really been great. It's really appropriate that he and I are doing this discussion today because this is his favorite Godzilla film, and this is my favorite Godzilla film from the Heisei period. So please check out his channel, Godzilla 851 on YouTube. You would not be disappointed. Great reviews, wrestling reviews, just an awesome cat. Check it out, Godzilla 851. And of course, John Ruffin. I want to thank John Ruffin for the use of his pics during the course of this video. You have seen his pics before in my other Kaiju film discussion videos. Once again, just a great, awesome tour photographer that takes or recreates our favorite scenes from my favorite Kaiju movies using X Plus figures and other figures. So thank you, John Ruffin, for the use of your pics during the course of this video. Also, want to give some promotion here. Yes. You probably seen this book in the background of my videos, The Shooting Godzilla. This is some of John's work, and it has pictures of all his, at least some of his pictures that he has done, and it is really great. And he's also got another book coming up, so please check out his website, mykaiju.com, or check him out on Facebook. John Ruffin, he's not hard to find, and you'll see his awesome work. But be on the lookout for something like this in the near future, okay? So once again, sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy the commentary of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. I thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see y'all again on the next figure and movie review. All right? Enjoy the commentary.
Yeah! Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? What? Yeah! Y'all ready to play some football? Just let's go! If you want it, you can get it. Let me know.
What's going on, people? LP 2000 right back at you with another Kaiju film discussion commentary. And on the line with me, I have, of course, one of the best Godzilla YouTubers out there, a really good friend of mine. You know him as Matt Jacobson, but better yet, you know him better as Godzilla 851 on YouTube. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thank you for that introduction.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for coming on and doing this Kaiju discussion dedicated to the 1991 Heisei Godzilla film, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And first off, let me say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this commentary. And I apologize for getting this commentary out so late. I know we talked about doing this months ago. But a lot of stuff has happened since then. You know, G-Fest, the recent onslaught of figures from S Plus that they're starting to bombard us with. There's just a lot of stuff been going on with the hobby. Shin Godzilla, just a lot of stuff been going on. And so I apologize for getting this out so late, but finally we are here together to discuss this awesome Godzilla movie. This is my favorite of the Heisei films, and this is Matt's favorite film of all time. So Matt, let's just go ahead first into it. Can you just give me your initial thoughts of why is this your favorite Godzilla film of all time?
Okay, now picture this. We got the Heisei series started off with Godzilla 1984. Then we got Godzilla vs. Biollante in 1989. And then, in my opinion, the beginning of this series was in a trilogy base because each film falls into each other. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah actually picks up essentially, not exactly right after, but essentially right when Godzilla vs. Biollante ends. And they actually go over how Godzilla is still sleeping after his battle with Biollante and still from the anti-nuclear energy bacteria. So I like how stories get carried on. The time travel, I'm always fascinated by time travel when it comes to movies and all the different questions that it brings up as well, which we'll get into. But most of all, when I see Godzilla or someone says Godzilla to me, it's always the 91 Godzilla that comes up. It's my absolute favorite look for him. It's got my absolute favorite roar, my favorite atomic breath, special effect. Just the miniatures involved with this film, King Ghidorah. I can't stop talking about how great King Ghidorah is in this film. Yes, the heads are still a little floppy, but that's just the way he was from the Showa series as well. And then the introduction of his mecha part, but we'll get into that when we get to the actual story of the film. Just those things, we'll get into the rest of it as we're talking about the movie, but one thing I'd like to say is before we get into that is this movie is a bit taboo to some people because of because of reasons. If I offend you when we talk about this, it's not my design to. It's just this movie does bring up a quote unquote touchy subject, which I honestly, when I just watched this movie a few hours ago before getting on with Leslie to do the interview or the Kaiju discussion, just to be refreshed, and I still feel the same way about it that I did back then. Is that I don't feel this film is as quote unquote offensive as some would want you to think it is, but we'll get into that when we get into it. But one final thing about what really draws me to this is that I like to get the whole picture of different characters. You know, seeing where Superman came from, see where Batman came from. Here we get to see, in a way, some people don't like this. I'm a fan of this. We get to see Godzilla before he's Godzilla. Some say it ruins it, some say it enlightens and enriches the story, but we'll get into that.
All right. And let me just say, this is by far my favorite. Like I mentioned before, this is my favorite of the Heisei films. It's kind of a two-part with me. I think from far as the best film, I would say the best that I would recommend to anybody is Godzilla vs. Biollante. But for selfish reasons, I think this one is the best from a personal perspective. Now, I wouldn't recommend this film to first-time fans because this film requires a lot of patience, and it requires a lot as a viewer because the build-up between the human parts and the monster action is really, really slow. But once it gets there, you know, you're able to have a great time once it gets there. But sometimes you may not have the patience to sit there and watch the character development and the story development before the monster action comes in. My exposure to this film, and this is actually one of the few things that I enjoy about the release of the 1998 Godzilla film in name only, but we won't go into that because we have taste here. By and large, I think one of the good things about the fact that they brought that film out, not because of the film itself, but the fact that they were able to bring out these Heisei films for the first time at VHS in North America. This was at a time where DVDs and Blu-rays were non-existent. It was just VHS and VCRs. Yes, people back in the day, we did use VCRs. I know that's kind of like unbelievable idea that we had VCRs and VHS tapes, not this digital enhanced Blu-rays and movies we got now. Yes, back then we had tapes, and that was my first time watching this film. And like I said, I think it's one of the good reasons that Godzilla 1998 came out, because it brought back these Heisei films to America, as well as Destroy All Monsters, because for a while these films weren't available to America just yet. And after I watched it, I was really, really impressed with the film. And it, like I said, there are some things that go against the film that a lot of people don't really care for. But like I said, we'll touch on that when it comes to the dislikes. But for like the backstory about this film, after the disappointing Godzilla vs. Biollante, and for one, I don't understand that. But Biollante was very disappointing in terms of like box office money that it brought in. It didn't bring in as much money as they would like it to be. So with the first two films, like Matt said, it's more grounded. It's more serious in a way with 84 and Biollante. But with this film, they go straight to the left field with science fiction, with the whole time travel element or whatever. And so they decided to bring back one of Godzilla's most iconic foes in King Ghidorah, to boost ticket sales, whatever. Because at the end of the day, Toho's a business. And so they decided to bring back King Ghidorah. They decided to bring back Akira Ifukube to score some of the music, which definitely does help the film. So that's my exposure to Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. And so let's just go ahead first into what do you love most? Like what are your likes when it comes to Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah? And then I'll talk about mine.
Okay, like I said before, this is my favorite incarnation of Godzilla. Ever since I saw this movie, where a friend of mine actually did get it on bootleg VHS, and we both watched it. I loved it. I had to borrow it that night and go home and watch it again because Godzilla stole the show. He's awesome in it. King Ghidorah, I love the redesign to him. Some people I've talked to say they don't like the idea that he doesn't have the hairs behind his neck, behind the horns.
Yeah, the manes. The
little manes. It's a little different, but, it didn't really bother me. One of my favorite characters of the Godzilla franchise, if not my favorite character, Megumi Odaka as Miki Sagusa.
Absolutely.
They brought her back, and she's always excellent in these films. The human feeling towards this, because here's the thing about Godzilla vs. Biollante and 84. Godzilla was a monster, a terror in those movies, as he should have been. That's the story that they were going for. But then we meet Mr. Shindo, who was originally in the garrison that was on Lagos Island. I'm sorry, I mean going into the story right now, but where he gets to see what Godzilla was before, and he almost, he comes almost like kindred spirits with him. So you get to see like almost like in a strange way a spiritual aspect to Godzilla as well in this, as far as humans are concerned. I mean, Miki Sakusa, she feels Godzilla everywhere because her ESP, but then we see this on a normal person feeling that connection as well, and that's also very interesting in my opinion.
Right.
What else we got? All right, I'm just gonna say, Mecha King Ghidorah is awesome.
Oh yes.
It's kind of funny. You see, I hear people saying, about the recent Superman films that he causes more destruction than the bad guys were doing. It's like, well, go back and watch Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. When Mecha King Ghidorah does this thing, he's blowing up half the city as well with Emmy.
Yeah.
Pilot, she's like, couldn't she send her to the range for a couple more minutes or something? They get more used to piloting Mecha King Ghidorah, but I jest. It's just a joke.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if you know this, but that part at the end when Mecha King Ghidorah fights Godzilla and Mecha King Ghidorah gets the upper hand on Godzilla where he makes him topple over, he falls back, and that shot where Mecha King Ghidorah destroys that building which crashes on top of Godzilla, that was actually the tax building in Japan. I think the major tax building, and from what I understand, when people watch this in the movie theaters in Japan, when that building was destroyed, people got up and started clapping. The people in Japan that was watching in the theaters, once that building was destroyed, even though it was a model, it still represents the tax building. They got up and started clapping and cheering because the tax building got destroyed. I think that's very funny.
I like that. I did not know that. Thank you for that. I like that very much.
No problem. Go ahead. I didn't mean to stop your train of thought. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, we're buds. You think of something, you say something, but don't ever feel like that. No, we're buds. Don't worry about that.
Appreciate it. Okay, no problem. So, is that all that you enjoy about this film? I know you love tons about this movie. So, is that all that you can think of, the top of your head?
Well, the other things I can think of are starting to get into the story. Big thing, if you're a fan of Godzilla, you go to G-Fest. Mr. Robert Scott Field, who was M11 in this film, which a lot of people are saying that he's a Terminator ripoff. No, he's just an android. All right, not every android is a Terminator. Come on, let's be nice. All right, his performance in it. When I first saw the film, I was very confused, and be honest, I was annoyed when I was watching, like, what is going on?
Right.
With age, I've grown to appreciate, the whole picture. When I was younger, it's like, yeah, get straight to the Godzilla stuff. It's like, now with age, I enjoy the whole story as well that goes along with it as well. Because I saw the movie when I was, like, 13 when I first saw it. So, I wouldn't really have the patience that I do nowadays. But his performance was great. Kind of a breakout in the film. Have you ever seen the Japanese version of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, he speaks Japanese quite well in it.
And he has lived over there for quite a while, so it wasn't surprising that he spoke Japanese fluently. Even before I knew more about him, before I went to G Fest, it really didn't surprise me the fact that he was speaking Japanese, or at least knew fluent Japanese. As a matter of fact, a lot of things about this film that people tend not to like, it kind of like glosses over with me, but I'll talk about that when I talk about my dislikes. But far as like what I like about this film, of course, Godzilla, he's the man. He's awesome. I love the look, even though it's the same look from Biollante, but they made minor tweaks. To me, he looks like a Brock Lesnar version of Godzilla, with the buffed up chest, the mean looking face, and of course the roar, whatever. It's too bad that they didn't maintain this roar for the rest of the Heisei films, but that's a topic for another time. But his appearance is so great, and I also love the fact that it's the first film and only film where Godzilla and King Ghidorah fight one-on-one, or at least Mecha King Ghidorah. I enjoy that. Like you said earlier, I enjoy the fact that they explain Godzilla's origin. Actually, I'm on both sides of that equation. I like both, and like in the original Godzilla film, they don't really. I mean, of course they explain what happened to him or how he was able to be resurrected, but you don't really see it. But you only supposed to take these things at face value, so you don't really see, or at least hear, a concrete explanation as to why this creature is here. So I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with the fact that they were able to explain the origin in this film. And actually, it's one of the best things about the film, the fact that this story involving Godzilla's origin, take the time travel element out of the equation. The fact that they were able to explain somewhat his origin, which leads up to the monster battle, is really, really good in my opinion. The monster battles are great. I love how King Ghidorah was able to do more things this time, but the fact that he was able to not only use his powers, his airborne abilities, the fact he was able to use his necks to like wrap around Godzilla's head and immobilize his arms. They showed King Ghidorah as a fighter, more so of a better versatile fighter in this film, because there have been films where King Ghidorah was not used to the best of his abilities, and of course I'm talking about Godzilla vs. Gigan. I love the film, but King Ghidorah wasn't what he should have been in that film.
Yeah, he felt very lazy in that film. I don't mean to knock the film either. It's just I don't know if they rebuilt that suit after a while, or if that was like a prototype they had in storage. But it just felt like King Ghidorah in that film just didn't really have any oomph to him. Well,
a couple things play into that. Number one, back then the 70s Godzilla films didn't have the budget as the 60s Godzilla films. So basically, let's say like in Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, 1964, maybe they had like maybe 20 people operating King Ghidorah. Because in addition to the guy being in the suit, all he did was control like the legs and the bulk of the suit for it to stand up. You had off-camera stagehands that handled the tails, the wings, and the heads. And let's say you had like 20 people doing that. In the 70s, you probably had half of those people. So that's why King Ghidorah moves very, very slow. You know what I mean? And of course, it wasn't the same suit as the 64. I heard a lot of folks say that. But if you watch the 64 film and watch Gigan, there are two different suits. The King Ghidorah suit from 64 is bigger. This one is more so smaller. But his performance, like I mentioned, is lackluster. But in the 91 film, they were able to, I would say, combine the different look with the Heisei King Ghidorah look and employ the frenzied performance of the 1964 King Ghidorah. That's one thing I love about this film. I love the scene with Shindo and Godzilla at the end when Godzilla is rampaging. All of a sudden he stops dead in his tracks and sees Shindo. That scene, to this day, I don't know what to make of it, but it's like an emotional scene where it's like Godzilla can't really help to be who he is, and it goes into a deeper conversation. It's the fact that it shows Godzilla as this dinosaur. Mankind came in, they maimed him, so that's why he keeps coming back to remind the world, like, hey, I didn't ask to be this way. I didn't ask to be this destructive super force. Y'all made me this way, so now I'm here to come back time and time again to remind you of the mistakes that you have made. So I think that scene kind of represents that, the fact that even though they share kind of a bonding moment, Godzilla still kills him and goes about his business. And the number one thing, and I'm going to finish talking about what I like about this film, is the fact that Godzilla and King Ghidorah in this film swap places. You have heard me say this before, and I know you're a wrestling fan. Like I said, this film reminds me of the awesome wrestling match for all the wrestling fans out there at WrestleMania 13 between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret Hart. If you know the match, you know the story, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Blood from a stone.
Right, and they both swap places. In this film, Godzilla and King Ghidorah basically swap places. In the beginning, Godzilla is looked upon as the neutralizer for King Ghidorah, but once he does, Godzilla becomes the bad guy and didn't have to rely on King Ghidorah to take out Godzilla. I love how they were able to swap places character-wise within the same film. And it was something fresh because we've never seen King Ghidorah as a hero before, so it was something. I mean, of course, I didn't really cheer for King Ghidorah. I was still on Godzilla's side, whether he was killing people or not. But I just loved that dynamic between the swapping the characters between that, the explanation of Godzilla's origin, the Shindo and Godzilla dynamic, the special effects. All that is why I enjoy this film. It's my favorite Godzilla film of the Heisei period. So with that being said, let's go into what we don't like about Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. So you got the floor, Matt. What do you not like about Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah?
Okay, the character Emmy. In the film, they go back in time to 1944, I think it was, to Lagos Island.
Okay.
And the Godzillasaur, well, I'll get into the Godzillasaur next, but the Godzillasaur is on the ground, and they transport him to the Bering Sea.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a very, very odd, original but odd origin for King Ghidorah in this film. There's these three little baby gold dragon-looking things. Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
My phone's acting funny. Sorry.
You're fine.
And they're called Dorats. So she opens up a window and lets them out on Lagos Island before the bomb is tested, and then they leave.
Right.
That creates King Ghidorah.
Right.
And then get back to the future. The future's another thing we gotta get into. That's all messy. And they're like, oh, King Ghidorah has taken Godzilla's place. You should see the look of shock, like legitimate shock on her face. Like, what did you think was going to happen with us? You let them out.
Right.
They were clearly... All right, so there's that. All right, so speaking of time and, changing the timeline... So King Ghidorah apparently is now where Godzilla was. And apparently they had him stay on Lagos Island this entire time. Godzilla's no longer there. So you got to think about from 1954 all the way to 1992, according to the film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's that Godzilla never attacked Japan. No one's ever seen Godzilla before. So you'd think that when people would come back to the future, M11 and the team with, Miki Zagusa and all the other people, that Japan would be very different. As in other time-traveling stories, when you change something in the past, it has a different effect on the future.
Right.
They return to the future, and they're like, oh, hey, Emmy, hey, M11, hey, Mickey, yeah, everything's fine, no Godzilla. It's like, how do you all know what Godzilla is if the timeline was changed?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I guess there's some kind of leeway, I guess, because the Futurans stayed in that one spot, so they remained as an anchor to keep everything the same. I guess you can make that argument, but I just always found that as a bit distracting.
Right.
Okay, should we talk about the controversy, or you want to save that for later?
Actually, you know what? Let's go in and talk about the controversy because, matter of fact, you know what? I'll jump into my dislikes because actually those are the only dislikes I don't like about the film, and you just cover that. I don't like the fact they changed King Ghidorah's origin. I have a hard time believing that those three little things, cute things, were able to form this gigantic, ravaging super monster, three-headed super monster. Although on the flip side, I kind of like the fact that, you know, Godzilla and King Ghidorah have somewhat of a shared origin because they both were made from nuclear radiation this time. Kind of like how Gamera and Gauss have a strange connection in the Gamera Garden of the Universe. So I kind of like that dynamic just a little bit. But through it all, I prefer King Ghidorah as the king of the space monsters, you know, the planet-destroying space demon. I don't really like how they changed King Ghidorah's origin, but I knew they had to do something to differentiate this version of King Ghidorah from the Showa. So, but I still don't like that. And also the time travel element, we all know about it. It's wonky. It is unexplainable. You can't really derive any kind of sense of logic from it. But once again, like I mentioned before, that doesn't really bother me, even though the flaws are there. I get that. I understand that. And honestly, between this wonky timeline and the explanation or lack of explanation, to be honest with you, that's the one thing that I don't like about this film in regards to Godzilla and King Ghidorah fighting one-on-one for the first time. I think the story should have been better. You know what I mean? Because between these two giant, iconic monsters, it's like Batman and Joker. It's Superman versus Bizarro, or Superman versus Lex Luthor, or whatever his number one arch nemesis is, Spider-Man, Green Goblin. When you have these two gigantic, iconic monsters that are basically connected with each other through storyline, through the fandom, through the course of time. I wish that, and of course, King Ghidorah is my favorite Godzilla villain of all time. So for me, I wish the story involving these two come together for the first time, fighting one-on-one, should have been better, because every other film involving these two involves another monster. So I kind of wish that the story could have been better between those two. Also, some of the special effects, even though I think they're good, there's some special effects that just wasn't that good as it was in Biollante. You know what I mean? So, even though that's baffling to me, because, you know, after the disappointing take that Biollante did, they actually increased the budget for this film. And it doesn't look like they did, considering what they did with the miniatures and the cinematography work. Because to me, I think all that is better in Biollante, but it's still good. You know, whatever. It's not. It wouldn't become like the norm, or at least like an ordinary look like you would find in the next film, Godzilla vs. Mothra, or Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, where they involve a lot of green screening, and you can tell. But other than that, those are the only two reasons, or at least a couple things, why I don't like about the film. So let's head into the controversy. I assume you talk about the soldiers getting killed by the Godzillasaurus. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Before we get into that, though, there is one huge thing that I'd like to bring up before. I was checking the time when Godzilla is fully on screen, and it's about the 1 hour and 15. No, by the 1 hour and 5 minute mark. About 1 hour and 10, whatever.
Right.
When he comes to Japan, we get those long, beautiful, pulled back shots, so we can see the entire majesty that is Godzilla in this film. Mm-hmm. When he's headed towards, you can only assume he's heading towards where King Ghidorah's signal is. You see Godzilla, but then you look off in the distance, and you see like a miniature King Ghidorah actually flying in to protect Godzilla. I think that scene is one of the best ones, best shot, and best looking scenes in the entire film.
Right.
But And the last part of that is that a lot of people have said, oh, but when some people complain about Godzilla 2014, how Godzilla's not in the film that much.
Right.
That is true. However, in this film, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, when he finally does show about the 1 hour mark, the last half of the movie is solely focused and dedicated to him. He's pretty much, every time there's a cut, it's only about 5 or 6 seconds, bam, right back to Godzilla.
Right.
Another, maybe, he's about 91%, he's going to go to Tokyo. Bam, right back to Godzilla destroying Tokyo then. And we get to see several minutes of him destroying this grand modeling city that they just built as well. That's the thing that I like to bring up whenever there's people say, oh, 2014, yeah, that barely has it, but the original films don't have them either. Well, when you look at a film like this, it's hard to hold that up as well. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and also, this is, and in addition to this film, there's also other films where Godzilla wasn't on the screen that much until like the very end, where he actually does something. Godzilla vs. Sea Monster.
Yep.
Terror of Mechagodzilla. You know, those films didn't involve Godzilla that much until the very end. And you know what? Those two films, especially Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, are still entertaining films. The point is, Godzilla does not need to be on the screen for 90% of the movie for it to be a great Godzilla film. As long as the story is good, as long as you have an engaging story with engaging characters, then it shouldn't matter when Godzilla's on screen. As a matter of fact, I tend to think that if you show Godzilla too much, it kind of takes the specialness away from it, or the uniqueness away from it. Because if you see something so special like Godzilla too much, when he does appear on screen, it doesn't have that type of feeling when he does appear. But when you don't see him, the same way with the shark in Jaws. You don't see the shark in Jaws that much, but when you do see it, it's like, oh man, that's great, you know, whatever. So I think that a lot of folks should just be just more mindful of the fact that, yes, Godzilla is the reason why we watch these films, but he doesn't necessarily need to be in every scene of the movie for it to be an entertaining Godzilla film. So I definitely agree with that. So you want to touch on this controversy with the World War II thing?
Yeah, let's get to it.
And you know what? I'll go first. As a matter of fact, like I mentioned before, that scene doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me the fact that American soldiers were killed by the Godzillasaurus. I think it was a scene just to drive the plot along. It's not like after that scene is over, when they go further into the film, it's not like I'm still thinking, oh man, I wonder what, you know. And it's not like my mind goes back to the soldiers being killed. By and large, the fact that when I first saw this film, I watched the dub version, and they don't make the American soldiers seem all that bright to begin with. So that's why I'm not invested in the soldiers, even though it's messed up that they got killed. But at the same time, I'm not emotionally invested into the stories. Or at least I'm not behind the characters the soldiers being killed. So when Godzillasaurus does, I'm like, okay, it's just part of the plot. I mean, but for me, even though I know it caused some controversy, as a matter of fact, I do remember seeing a CNN story about this on TV. Now, mind you, this was like at a time where, you know, I mean, I was a kid back in 1991. I think I was like maybe 14, 13, something like that. Yeah, I think, hold on. No, I was 11. I was like 11 or 12. And they showed pictures, or at least footage of Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and they were talking about the scene involving the soldiers being killed. Mind you, I didn't really care about what they were talking about. I was just more so excited there was a new Godzilla film. Because at that point, the last film I saw was Godzilla 1985. And at the end of that film, you would think Godzilla was dead. So when I saw that they were making a new Godzilla film, I was like, oh, man. I mean, little did I know that I would not be able to see the film until like 20 years later. But that scene doesn't bother me, even though I know it can ruffle some feathers with some people. But to me, it doesn't bother me. Matt, the floor is yours.
Okay, so before we get into the soldiers, how about that Godzillasaurus? I enjoy the Godzillasaurus. The only thing that I would change about him is his roar. Because every time he roars, it's like, hey, Gamera's in the movie as well. Oh, it's just a Godzillasaur. Why does he sound like Gamera? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Alright, so here we go. So, there's a scene in the film where Lagos garrison of the Japanese army is, being pinned down by the U.S. Navy, as is in war. During the conflict, during the day, they're fighting. The Godzillasaurus comes. Now, it seems to ignore the Japanese military, which I don't think it is. I think the U.S. Army, they have rocket launchers. They have louder machine guns. They're doing more damage. So that would actually cause the Godzillasaur to have more attention drawn to them.
Yeah.
As the Godzillasaur is walking around, they start shooting at it, and that really gets his attention. And then that's when we get the stepping and the tail swiping, and then they bomb the Godzillasaur with the out in the water. They have battleships. They harm it, but then it finishes off the U.S. Army. Now, the controversy that brought to me is like, oh, but the Japanese military was there. Why didn't it attack there? Well, if you look at the Godzillasaur's chest, it's kind of wide open and bleeding all over the place. I don't think he had much energy left in him to really, continue fighting.
Right.
And, since Mr. Shindo was there, and then we see what Godzilla does in the future to Mr. Shindo, it's almost like, okay, well, there's karma right there. I guess in some way he does come back as a destroyer in a way and finishes the job in the future. If that's going to make anyone happy, I don't think that would really be there to make anyone happy. It's just part of the story and the legend of what Godzilla has become, to finish up. It's just, there's that. And then there's the controversy saying that, it's corrupt Americans coming to Japan and wanting to take over Japan. And, that's wrong. Well, okay, I can see that. However, one of the people that went along with was Emi, a Japanese native. We have M11, who is based on a Caucasian male. Mm-hmm. Everyone else on board the ship were all based on Caucasian males. Those are all robots. So really, the only two human characters were just those two American-looking guys who actually spoke fluent Japanese as well.
Right.
So sometimes you can't get so invested in someone's skin color or the looks of them at the detriment of the story and what's going on. Would it have really changed anything if they were of any other kind of race going to do it? In my opinion, when I saw the film, okay, it's just two corrupt businessmen working for some no-name guy in the future that wants to, pretty much capitalize on Japan and, give them the new computer and make them build the place in their image so they return the future rich. That's the way how I saw it. And, color and race didn't really have a picture into that. It could have been anyone doing that.
Right.
I mean, would it have been better if it was an alien race that came down and did that? No, it would have been just as sucky. But the main part of it is it's a Godzilla film. They were changing it up, and as far as the story is going along, I really enjoyed it. I did not feel threatened. I did not feel offended during any of the times I've watched it. I just watched the film, 3-4 hours ago, getting ready for this Kaiju discussion. I did not feel offended at all watching that scene, at all. Any of the scenes.
And you know what? I feel the same way, and I think it's one of those situations where it's a movie, and besides, even the director said he didn't mean any kind of disrespect when he filmed that scene, whatever. So it's coming from the director's mouth. He didn't intend to offend anybody, and it wasn't meant to be. And like I said, between that and the wonky time traveling element in the film, of course, there are flaws, there are plot holes in this film that you can sink a ship through. We understand that, but it's still an entertaining film, and for it to still be Matt's favorite and my personal favorite of the Heisei films, I think speaks a lot. In all these great Godzilla films, because he has had lots and lots of great great films. You know, I mean, of course, he had a couple questionable ones, but through it all, like I mentioned before, even the ones I do find questionable, I still find them entertaining. Every single Godzilla film I find entertaining, and I think it's one of the situations with this film where you got a lot going against it on the surface. It's still, like I said, the soldiers getting killed, even though it kind of sends a bad message between Japanese and Americans, it glosses over me because I'm too invested into the movie to worry about how it may offend me to a certain extent. Now, if it went as far as like labeling certain people or talking derogatory about certain people, that's another thing. But it was made just to, that scene was made just to drive the plot along. And like I said, with the whole time travel element, yes, it's questionable, but and not one time when I watch this film, whenever I watch this film, do I say, you know what, this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense, because to me the film is too entertaining for me to even stop to question it. Only when other people point it out is when I look at it like, oh, okay, I can see your point, but it doesn't make me want to question it the next time I watch it. So I think that's where the problem lies. I think people just need to sit back, relax, and just enjoy the film for what it is, which is basically strict fun entertainment. I think a lot of people just get too sensitive and just get too invested with it, and I guess too invested where you really are not on board with why the film was made in the first place, was just to entertain and strictly have fun with it. So with that being said, let's go. You know what? Let's go into our final thoughts, and we'll wrap this review up. So final thoughts, Matt. Would you recommend this to a kaiju newbie fan, and where does this film sit in the franchise as far as you're concerned?
Actually, hold that thought. So would I recommend this film? Yes, I would. I would say watch Godzilla 1984 and Godzilla vs. Biollante first to set the table for different themes that are going on. But I would recommend this film, and also watching Godzilla from the 1954. I would recommend that as well before watching this, because of the whole World War II subplot that's going on. It's like, well, why'd they go back to that, and why is he around? Why is he around that time?
Right.
Well, Godzilla explains that it's all because around that time, that's why that's all going on. That's where the Godzilla store was. So, but would I recommend this film? Yes, I would.
And where does this film sit in the franchise as far as you're concerned, in your opinion?
In my opinion, this is one of the top 5 films, in my opinion. I haven't really sat down and looked at all the films to try and quantify a top 5, but this is definitely up there.
And you know what? I feel the same way. And to me, it's like in the top 5 of, like I said, Godzilla has got lots and lots and lots of films, and there are some films that are very important to the franchise that you need to see as a Godzilla fan, or if you want to get into this 100%. And the films that, off the top of my head, that I would recommend to anybody, of course, there's the original Godzilla 54. King Kong versus Godzilla, because that film basically jump-started the Showa series where we started having a lot of movies. I would recommend this film also because it's the first time and only time where you see these two monsters, Godzilla and King Ghidorah, face off one-on-one. GMK, those are the movies I can think of on top of my head are very important pieces of the franchise that every Godzilla fan has to watch. Would I recommend this to a kaiju newbie? I think I kind of explained that earlier. I would say yes, but at the same time, I'll put a little asterisk to it. Watch other films involving Godzilla and King Ghidorah so you can get an understanding like why these cute creatures are enemies. Why do they have such an enriched history? Why is King Ghidorah the Joker to Godzilla's Batman? So I would recommend that, because I recommend you see other Godzilla King Ghidorah films first before watching this one. But other than that, I would highly recommend this film. Also be informed that, like I said, it requires a lot of patience. Like I said, there's a lot of character and story development. The monster action doesn't really happen until the third act. But like I said, it requires a lot of patience. But if you can enjoy and just not take it too seriously and just enjoy the film, or at least the character development, strictly for what it is, once the monster action gets there, once it gets there, you will have a wonderful time. Where does this film sit in the franchise? Like I said, like I said, top 5. I'll probably put it number 3 and number 4. It really is an important entry despite the problems that it was going through and despite the problems a lot of people like to think that it has, but it's really not that bad. It really, really is not that bad. And that's why I love the film so much, and that's why it's my favorite of the Heisei film. That's why it's Matt's favorite of all time. And that basically concludes our Kaiju discussion of the epic Godzilla film, the third in the Heisei film series, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah in 1991. If you have any questions, holler at us down in the comment section. Also, hit up Gojira 851, Matt Jacobson. He has his own great YouTube channel with reviews, informative commentaries, even wrestling commentaries. The guy does it all, and he is such an awesome YouTuber. Great information. Just you will not find anybody better when it comes to YouTube with Matt Jacobson, also known as Gojira 851. I thank you so much for being a part of this Kaiju discussion. I appreciate it, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. But before we go, I have a bit of a, I don't know if you can call this a challenge, maybe a gentleman's duel we could have. I understand that Godzilla Raids Again isn't one of your favorite films.
Well,
Uh-oh.
What? No. Now, see, that's the thing. It is, but it isn't. Like, it's not one of my go-to films if I want to watch a Godzilla film. By and large, over the fact that, they basically butchered the crap out of it when it came to the American version. That's the version I grew up on.
Yeah, that's right.
I grew up on Gigantus, and I have some feelings about that. But when it comes to Godzilla Raids Again, I do enjoy the film for what it is, and I do give it credit for being the first ever Kaiju versus Kaiju monster film, where a lot of folks tend to gloss over that one and look at King Kong versus Godzilla as the first, but really it was Godzilla Raids Again. So I feel like if that film wasn't successful, we wouldn't have had the great show or film series. Of course, King Kong versus Godzilla helped it out a little bit. It helped it out a lot, but it wasn't the first. Godzilla Raids Again was the first. But yes, I do enjoy the film. Why do you ask?
I happen to really do enjoy the film, and I've been working on YouTube, listening to different commentaries and different reviews, and I feel I need to make a video on defending the movie, because I think there's this misconception that less time means less quality. Well, what's your favorite Godzilla film, by the way? I think it's Monstera Tai Gojira from 1964.
Absolutely.
Okay, what other movie came out that same exact year?
Are you asking what if that film came out the same year as Mothra vs. Godzilla?
Yeah, what other movie came out that year?
Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster.
There we go. So, I think it's a little presumptuous to say less time means less quality when we got Mothra versus Godzilla, and then we got Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster. Yet they probably knew what they were doing going into it, but we have to give Godzilla Raids Again one little leeway, is that Gojira was supposed to be a one-off, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I forget, it was either the producer of the film, he was out of town, and when he came back and saw the success of Gojira, he, right then and there, greenlit a sequel and wanted it done. Snap, 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 pretty much. And for what they turned in, I really enjoyed it.
And you know what? That will be our next Kaiju discussion. How about that?
Okay, that sounds great to me.
You heard it here first, folks. Our next Kaiju discussion, the number 3 between Gojira 851 and myself. Of course, our first one was Destroy All Monsters. Please check it out. It's in the archives on my channel. And now this one being done, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, 1991. And our next Kaiju discussion will be dedicated to the second Godzilla film, Godzilla Raids Again, also known as Gigantus the Fire Monster. All right, well, it's called Godzilla Raids Again.
That name means nothing. Oh, God, we'll leave it for the.
Yes.
Again, it's one of the worst names I've heard for Godzilla ever in my life.
Yes. We're gonna dive into that for real. And you know what? Even though it's gonna be a positive discussion, we're not gonna bash the film, but we will try and figure out what in the world were they thinking when they brought that film to America and renamed it Gigantus of Fire Monster. But like I said, stay on the lookout for that. We're going to try and get that done, hopefully within the next month or so. But that's our next discussion, Godzilla Raise Again. Once again, Gojira 851, Matt Jacobson, thank you so much for being a part of this. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, go check out his channel, Gojira 851. You will not be disappointed when you do. All right? I thank y'all for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on the next Figure and Move review. All right? Y'all take it easy. Thanks, man.
Have a good night.
You too.